everybody, and thank you for joining us for another installment of the Applexus Expert Series. I'm Elizabeth Fratantino, and I will be your host for today. And with me is Shelley Schwartz, Retail Architect and Practice Director for Applexus's Retail Practice. Shelley, thanks for coming on the show again.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
So we've talked in the past about CAR, and you've given us a lot to think about. But I want to shift gears and talk about implementation. So how would you advise, or how do you advise your customers on what they need to do to start that CAR implementation?
Sure. Well, almost everyone starts with the sales audit, POS, DTA, data transfer and audit. So that's what I'm going to zero in on today. And if you're already an SAP retail customer, then it's much simpler than if you have non-SAP systems. So we're going to talk about both though. So when you start on an implementation project, there's really 4 areas to evaluate to have a smooth implementation. Now, first is the integrity, cleanliness of all your master data. If you're already on SAP retail, then your master data is likely in very good shape. So this wouldn't be an issue. But if you don't use SAP retail, then you're going to want a detailed review, cleanse the master data and so forth. So there's no issues in the audit process. The second thing is to review all your sales channels. POS mapping takes time. It's often the long pole in the tent. But there's other channels. You want to bring in your e-com orders, your wholesale customers, and those sales orders should flow to CAR. Again, if you're on SAP and you've implemented sales and distribution, then those sales orders will flow automatically. If not, mapping, reformatting might be needed. The third area is to look at your infrastructure for POS trickle polling. Almost everyone wants to do trickle polling, but you're going to need to review the infrastructure, what you already have or what you still need. And that can be things like file locations, naming conventions, error processing. What do I do with missing files? And then last, if you're going to use the Applexus add-on for consumer credit card reconciliation, which of course I would suggest, then you're going to need to map those daily feeds from your payment processors into CAR. So those are the 4 areas I would say are critical.
Great. And thinking about those, what is your experience in terms of the pitfalls, the gotchas, the things that companies need to watch out for when they're implementing CAR?
Okay, great. So one thing you have to do, have a really good cross-functional team. You're going to want people from finance, IT, POS, technical POS people, e-com folks, other sales channels. Everyone needs to be involved in this because they all have a say in the data and how to manage it. Second is, can't stress enough, those POS T-log issues. So everything needs to be tested. How are you going to handle missing duplicate transactions? How are you going to monitor for that the trickle polling? Those are all critical things to get right up front. And then the third thing is, be sure to size your CAR system properly. You want it for not only today, but for the future. So you have to have good stats on what you're doing today to get that good sizing. So those are the ones I've seen.
Makes perfect sense. So if you were to give your customers maybe one or two pieces of advice, what would they be?
Okay, well, one is hard, so thanks for the 2. The first one is data and testing. I can't stress this enough. This is the critical part of the sales audit, obviously. And it goes without saying that if you have the right team and the data mapping is great and it flows well, you still have to test. So it's data, testing. If you have 20 different types of discounts, every one of them needs to be tested fully. And then finally, I would say change management, because there's going to be change for your sales auditors, no matter what. It's important that you manage that. And especially if you don't currently audit it at this detailed granular level that POS DTA does. Today, some folks only do department level auditing, and that would be a big change. But the benefits in the analytics with this granular level could really help the company. So as we talked about in our previous conversations, in the end, implementing CAR, POS DTA, gives you the foundation to do so much more with CAR. It's really worth the effort.
Shelley, thanks so much for all this valuable information. I know that we could talk for probably hours about CAR. So for those of you that are viewing us, please feel free to visit our website to learn more about CAR and specifically how Applexus can help you on your journey. And just a small plug for our quality engineering or testing practice. We've done a couple of blogs in the past with the quality engineering practice leaders. So feel free to go visit those or see our website for more information on testing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, Shelley, so much for your time.
Sure. Thanks, Elizabeth.